Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, October 4th, 2018. Time for yet another show. Hey, just breaking news. I don't know whether we're going to be able to do a show tomorrow or not because orthodontia, emergency orthodontia, nothing terrible, but just something I couldn't get an appointment for at a more convenient time and couldn't wait for anymore. Just found this out this morning as instructions were given from on high that this thing had to be taken care of. So, advance warning. There's plenty, of course, that we should be talking about. However, I don't know that I'm going to find the time in my busy schedule to put together a pre-recorded show for tomorrow. It's a little bit late notice, but hey, these things arrive, and hey, maybe I'll surprise you, although I don't know where I would find the time. What a day. It doesn't matter. LOL, YOLO, nothing matters, as a matter of fact. Senators spending the day entering a secret room under cover of secrecy. Apparently they are not allowed to cover this with television cameras. They can't even cover the comings and goings of senators going to the secret room under guard and only for a few moments and with no staffers to review the one and only copy of the totally thorough, fair, open, and complete FBI investigation demanded by Jeff Flake and others just in the last couple of days, and which apparently, despite the fact that the White House is confident that it is entirely exculpatory, no one will be allowed to see it. In fact, it was articulated as protocol earlier, I guess even last night, not just early this morning, that you weren't even allowed to characterize this totally exculpatory report that finds no corroborating evidence whatsoever of the charges against Brett Kavanaugh. So, of course, well, that's a characterization of the contents of the report. But it doesn't matter because LOL, YOLO, nothing matters. The president can do whatever he wants, and that includes telling senators that they're not allowed to do anything they want. Should be a very interesting day. Chris Coons managed to get on television this morning to say that he was quite concerned about this thing, and this worried him a great deal that this might not have been a full, thorough, and independent investigation. And the way he put it this morning to CNN Politics, I'm concerned that if the FBI never interviewed Dr. Christine Blasey Ford or her corroborating witnesses, and that's what happened, if they never interviewed many of Judge Kavanaugh's classmates from Yale who came forward, that this isn't the investigation I was hoping for. Noticeably absent from Senator Coons' hip this morning, Senator Jeff Flake, his conjoined twin. Over the last couple of days, they've been doing joint appearances all over American news television for the last couple of days. But I guess he had a thing this morning. So there you have it. The reaching across the aisle to gently persuade the senator who might be movable. Well, they haven't voted yet, but it's beginning to look like, oh my goodness, it's another empty bust that came up with nothing for all of your efforts. But golly, thanks for playing along and getting me on TV for the past couple of days. I got to run. I got a breakfast thing. So we'll see. Still time for for things to change. Murkowski, she may be a no. She seems to be, well, she speaks about it firmly anyway, as compared to, say, Senator Collins, who really just hasn't had much to say that was of any value in quite a while on this subject. The current procedural posture is that it looks like, as we discussed yesterday, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell dropped his cloture motion late yesterday in keeping with the expected schedule of allowing that motion to ripen today, the 24-hour period that has to pass between the day on which you file cloture and the day on which you vote for cloture, setting up a vote, and this is where we'll do our procedural investigation for the day, unless Greg asks me about it again, in which case it'll be just fine. Here's what happens. the vote, this is how you should refer to it. The vote could happen as early as Friday. It could happen as early as 12:01 a.m. on Friday if they wanted to do things that way. And then, of course, once the vote happens, if cloture is invoked, there would be up to 30 hours of post-cloture debate before a vote on final disposition of the nomination would take place. So the thing to remember is that Friday is the earliest a vote could take place, and it would be not entirely accurate, at the very least, to say that a vote is scheduled for Friday. What you should keep in mind, if you're trying to read tea leaves and trying to decide whether or not McConnell has the votes and would he have filed for cloture if he didn't have the votes, the answer is sure. Why not? And there are a couple of reasons why you might do that, but chief among them is, remember, the vote can happen as early as Friday, but does not have to happen Friday. That stands in contrast to what would happen if cloture were voted on and adopted. If the cloture motion is adopted, the 30-hour clock starts, and things can't go beyond the 30 hours. They can actually wait and schedule a vote for their own convenience afterwards. It's not something that as soon as the 30-hour clock rings, as soon as the alarm goes off, they must vote. But the only business that the Senate can address once the 30-hour clock runs out, should they at any point convene after that 30-hour clock runs out, the first order of business would be the disposition of the underlying vote. Whatever you've invoked cloture on, you vote on final passage or final adoption of. That's how that would work. So there's much less flexibility once there's a cloture vote. But filing for cloture still leaves you a lot of flexibility. So if it were the case that Mitch McConnell thought he did not have the votes and either thought he could get them in the ensuing couple of days, or for whatever reason was no longer interested in getting the votes, but just interested in wrapping up the nomination one way or another, or whatever his motivation. The point is that this sets him up for a vote whenever he decides to have it starting Friday. And if Monday is more convenient for a cloture vote, do it on Monday. If next Thursday is more convenient for a cloture vote, then do it then. If there's no day that's convenient for a cloture vote and you think you're going to lose, maybe the strategy is still to go ahead and have it on Friday and then just say, fine, we lose. I told you so, Mr. President, if that's the message he wants to deliver. But by itself, the filing for cloture is not an indication that he has the votes. I don't want to give you false hope. It may very well be that he does have the votes. After all, Joe Manchin once again hinting that he may vote for Kavanaugh, and that would leave Murkowski free to vote no. If flakes once again and Collins does what Collins does once again, it shouldn't matter. But another thing that's floating out there, lots of protest and demonstration planned for districts, states around the country for this weekend, mostly, probably anyway, in anticipation of the senators coming home. Either, I don't know whether all the protests are scheduled near their offices or not, but they're certainly scheduled and slated for a time and place that was meant to have the home state senator take notice of the fact that they are going on. And they can still take notice of it. But one of the really great strategic ideas about filing for cloture now and announcing to the world that that means that a cloture vote could take place as early as Friday, and that in turn could mean that a vote on the nomination itself could take place as early as middle of the night, but as between Saturday and Sunday. That is to say, weekend votes on a very, very important matter are possible. That freezes senators in D.C. They don't go home, which they usually don't like very much, but they also don't arrive home to protests that were arranged to schedule to make one last-ditch effort at swaying them. Why let them go home and possibly be confronted in elevators by sexual assault victims when you can keep them here instead? And once you've started banning cameras from the hallways, such as the hallway outside of Senator Collins' office or the hallway outside of the special super secret room where they can only go one at a time to read the report that doesn't have anything in it, well, you can just start taking away camera and reporter access from the whole place. Cloister them for the weekend and do nothing but give them pep talks about how it's imperative that this vote go forward and that Kavanaugh be installed on the court, and that solves half your problem. So several good reasons to file cloture whether you have the votes or not, but you shouldn't mistake that for the possibility that they know exactly what they've got, and they do have the votes, and they're just going to execute their plan in their own good time. No way to guess, except by listening to the senators who say, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for him anyway, or the senators who, now that the FBI report has been filed, suddenly don't have a hankering for being on television anymore. Anyway, Greg Dworkin joins us with his roundup of stories, headlines, maybe some polls. Let's see what's in the bag today. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Hi. We got all of those things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's open the bag and dump them out and have Jeff Flake say how concerned he is about it.
Well, the one note I would make on the procedural discussion, which I love, of course, that you gave us, is the whole idea of whether, in fact, it's a normal situation where if you don't have the votes, you pull it. But as you pointed out, in this particular case, there's so much pressure from the White House, which we'll talk about in terms of what people expect to happen, not with the vote, but the effect on the electorate, that McConnell basically is committed to having a vote whether he wins or loses.
Yeah.
So in a normal situation, he invokes cloture, so therefore he has the votes. In this particular case, probably, but not so clear.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of moving parts, and unfortunately, some of it includes Democrats saying maybe they'll like me if I vote yes.
But maybe they'll like me if I vote yes as long as I'm not the 50th vote. That's Manchin's position.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be the 51st or 52nd. What the hell? I'm an election and I want to represent West Virginia, and I'll tell my Democratic colleagues that I'm representing West Virginia more than the Democratic Party, and that's okay so long as I'm not the deciding vote. If I'm the deciding vote, that doesn't mean that I vote for Kavanaugh, but I sure am not happy about that.
Yes, well, life's tough.
Life is tough. Heitkamp is in a similar situation, but I would guess if she were the deciding vote, she votes no. So really, I assume Flake's a yes because Ben Sasse was on the floor of the Senate last night.
Yeah, poor Ben.
Poor Ben, talking about how hard it is and how difficult it is, and a vote shouldn't be associated with a yes or no vote on the Me Too movement. Ha.
Not at all.
So I assume Sasse is a yes despite all the whining. I assume Flake is a yes despite all the whining, and it still comes down to Collins and Murkowski, and I assume Heitkamp will go with them whatever they do.
Yes, very likely true.
Now, I think Murkowski's a no. But I don't trust Collins at all. And I can't imagine Collins would be the deciding vote and vote no. I could see her, like Manchin, being the 49th vote.
Yeah.
But that's really what the interesting situation is there. So, we'll see. There's reasons to vote against Kavanaugh that one could justify. A whole bunch of stuff that the FBI didn't do because they only asked to talk to 10 people and only talked to 9.
Right. I was busy.
There was another 40 in the wings, but they weren't permitted to talk to them, nor were they permitted to talk to the principals. And the principal of most interest for them to talk to actually was not Dr. Ford. It would have been Brett Kavanaugh. That is to say, you go back under oath after giving what you know from these other people who told us that you drank like a fish and threw up all over the place. How do you reconcile that from what you told us before? And that's what the White House wanted to avoid and didn't allow to happen.
Well, congratulations to the White House.
We have in Slate, I was Brett Kavanaugh's college roommate. He lied under oath about his drinking in terms of his yearbook. This is James Roche. Jane Mayer and Ronan Farrow have one from the New Yorker yesterday. The FBI probe ignored testimonies from former classmates of Kavanaugh and now names some of the anonymous sources they had before in their Deborah Ramirez story. So now people have names. Everybody always thinks it's more serious if they have names, and that's true. Kenneth G. Appold was a suite mate of Kavanaugh's at the time of the alleged incident. He had previously spoken to the New Yorker about Ramirez on condition of anonymity, but said he thought is now willing to be identified because he believes that the FBI must thoroughly investigate her allegation. He's the James Hastings Nichols Professor of Reformation History at Princeton Theological Seminary, and said he first heard about the alleged incident, including Kavanaugh and Ramirez, either the night it occurred or a day or two later. He's 100% certain he was told that Kavanaugh was the male student. He said he never discussed the allegation with Ramirez, who he said he barely knew. But I can corroborate the account.
So is this the third freshman year roommate, or is this a different?
This isn't a roommate. This is somebody who was
sweet mate. I thought he said.
No? Let's see. This classmate. These are classmates.
Okay, just other kinds of mates.
This guy that lied was a sweet mate who said that Kavanaugh lied from Slate. This is from the New Yorker, and this is a classmate.
Totally different. Yes, well, the story made the rounds. That's the key part. I actually found that one even more interesting than hearing about the roommate was willing to testify to his drinking habits, and I guess other classmates are testifying to, this was a big story even then. People talked about it because it was weird, disgusting, and unusual.
Right, and so for the FBI not to talk to somebody like him is obviously under direction. So the Democrats will be saying, of course, that it was a sham because it was a sham.
Right.
The full affidavit from Georgetown Prep classmate is worth reading. Michael Luo, L-U-O, editor of New Yorker, has one of those legal-looking things because it's numbered.
Okay, right.
Every sentence is numbered.
Yeah, transcript of a deposition or an affidavit of some kind.
Right.
Okay.
Specifically, I recall on multiple occasions Brett Kavanaugh counting with his fingers how many kegs they did over the weekend. For example, I heard Brett Kavanaugh say it was a 2-kegger weekend on at least one occasion, counting the kegs on his fingers. I always had the clear impression that Brett Kavanaugh routinely drank tons of beer in excess over the weekend because that's what he and his friends bragged about.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the drinking part about it.
Counting 2 kegs on your fingers, though?
Yeah, and by the way, he says for himself, I didn't drink alcohol, I didn't take illegal drugs in high school. Aside from bragging about how much they drank over the weekend, they would also brag about how much sex they had over the weekend.
I
do not recall Brett Kavanaugh specifically say he had sex with any particular person, but I do recall Brett Kavanaugh generally participating in these conversations with the football players or bragging about sexual conquests over the weekend. And this is Georgetown Prep, and then talking about Renate.
Yeah, poor Renata.
And there's a whole section on that.
Yeah. So once again, the poem the kids had, and they were singing it in the hall.
So this is just more of this is the people they didn't talk to. But the media will.
Yeah, well, we still have that opportunity.
So basically, Kavanaugh's reputation is trashed. And we know that from the polls. More people believe her than him. And the more that stuff like this comes out, the more that's going to be true. Interestingly, if Republicans and Trump coalition people want to support Kavanaugh, it's really difficult to figure out what the rationale is. The real rationale is they want to win and they want liberals to lose. But the stated rationale is very difficult because you can't tell whether it's I don't believe her, I believe him, or I believe her, but who cares, or it was so long ago, or it was boys will be boys, or the actual thing that happened was exaggerated. It's really hard to tell because everybody has a different rationale that they're putting forward as to why it's okay giving themselves permission to go ahead and support Kavanaugh. Well,
there's a list of explanations, and if you find yourself in an extended argument with somebody and you defeat one of them, they'll just give you the other one. We don't know what their rationale is. This is the list of rationales they have, but underlying it all is I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Right.
So I want to do it.
But it's actually easier to distill down the way Adam Silver did it in The Atlantic.
Yes. Okay.
The title of his piece is "The Cruelty is the Point." President Trump and his supporters find community by rejoicing in the suffering of those they hate and fear.
Yes. I think that sums it up. He's probably written more than just that, but that really does the trick.
It's a long article, but that's your abbreviated pundit roundup right there.
It's otherwise known as headlines.
Yeah, but headlines and subheader, and actually, it's pretty good. He had got a piece in here. Section says, the laughter undergirds the daily spectacle of insincerity as the president and his aides pledge fealty to bedrock democratic principles they have no intention of respecting. The president who demanded the execution of 5 black and Latino teenagers for a crime they didn't commit, decrying false accusations when a Supreme Court nominee stands accused. His supporters who fancy themselves champions of free speech met references to Hillary Clinton, whose only crime is coming forward to offer her own story of abuse with screams of lock her up. And the lock her up chant has really become quite interesting in the sense that it's not really Hillary. It's any woman who comes out and opposes them.
Yeah, lock them all up.
Stands up to lock them all up.
That's a great approach, and
Right?
53% of white women loved it. So
Yeah, this isn't incoherent. It reflects a clear principle. Only the president and his allies, the supporters, and their anointed are entitled to the rights and protections of the law and, if necessary, immunity from it. The rest of us, we're entitled only to cruelty and by their whim. That is how the powerful have ever kept the powerless divided in their place and enriched themselves in the process.
well, okay, darn it.
This philosophy, how is it working? And what else is behind pushing Kavanaugh? Here's a piece in Quartz. Mitch McConnell is rushing to get Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to appease Trump voters.
Oh, okay. I thought Pearson Courts was a classmate at Georgetown Prep, possibly.
It's a classmate of Charles Pierce, who writes for Esquire.
Ah, okay.
The rush to confirm Brett Kavanaugh as the next U.S. Supreme Court justice, despite growing doubts about his temperament and truthfulness, as well as allegations of sexual misconduct, boils down to one reason. He's key to getting Trump voters to the polls in November, some Republicans say. If Republicans can't get Kavanaugh confirmed, Donald Trump supporters will give the party the middle finger and not show up at the polls for the November 6 midterm elections. John Fredericks, a conservative talk show host who was Trump's campaign chairman in Virginia, told Quartz. Internal GOP polling of Trump's voters shows that Kavanaugh's confirmations is make or break for them, he said, but he wouldn't share the polls. These internal polls explain why Mitch McConnell's going nuts, Frederick said.
Yeah.
When McConnell scheduled the cloture vote, cloture is in scare quotes, for Kavanaugh's nomination, which, if successful, sets the stage for a final vote on Saturday, which would be, I guess, Saturday night, Sunday morning. Shortly after the FBI closed a hasty investigation into Kavanaugh's character, would-be witnesses in the investigation, including Kavanaugh's former college roommate, say they haven't been heard from the FBI. And, of course, Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford haven't been interviewed. So the whole idea is that it energizes the base. We'll get to that in a minute. But Quartz points out Kavanaugh could still fail because Flake, Murkowski, and Collins really haven't committed themselves. And this conservative talk show host who says he has internal polls figures that Murkowski is the key. If she votes no, she's going to sink the GOP for 20 years.
Okay.
So I see that happen.
Well, I would like to encourage her to think about it.
Right.
And maybe do it.
So Nate Silver took a look at this, and so did Dave Wasserman. Nate says, here's it's complicated look at whether the Kavanaugh hearings have been helping the GOP in the polls. It's one of those cases where the narrative, which is GOP enthusiasm is surging, is both exaggerated and cherry-picked, but also has a grain of truth. They gained a point.
It's literally one grain.
But they also gained in North Dakota, which may or may not have had anything to do with Kavanaugh. Beyond North Dakota and the generic, there isn't a ton of information there. House polls have been rocky for the GOP with some but not many exceptions, so not usually robust. But I'm inclined to trust our model, Nate says, which shows the GOP better positioned in the Senate and much more ambivalent in the House. Dave Wasserman chimes in. That theory, the GOP surge theory, is also not supported by the bulk of district-level House polling, some of which I have for you after the break if I don't do it beforehand, which continues to be pretty robust for Democrats. And so Nate's long piece is called, Is Kavanaugh Helping Republicans' Midterm Chances? Republicans have gained in our Senate forecasts and elsewhere less clear. And he puts the numbers out here, and he said part of it is it depends upon when you compare it to.
When? Okay.
Right. So if you're looking before the hearings, if you're looking when Ford's name was released, if you're looking at before the Jeff Flake, Chris Kuhn hearing, or if you're looking at today. So different dates have different frames of reference for the chance of GOP House control, which ranged from the chance of GOP getting the House and keeping the House was 34% on September 3rd and 29% now. And that would seem to be a drop, but on September 26th, it was 22%. So, it's been bouncing around, but it's still relatively low.
I see.
And it really hasn't changed that much. In their so-called deluxe model, which includes everything, including pundits and the environment and polling, on September 3rd, the Republicans had a 27% chance of keeping the House, and today it's 28. I mean, that basically is what you get down to here. You can look at Trump ratings, and you get the same scenario here. There really isn't that much change. What has changed is the way Republicans write about it. And so this is one of these polls don't match narrative things. And, of course, Nate's the data guy. He's going to go with the polls. And this is one of those pundits. Well, it feels right to say that, the Kavanaugh thing would, excuse me, energize the GOP, because that's what I'm hearing on talk radio. So, therefore, that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
Any data for that? Secret polls that we won't tell you.
Right. But you can look at the polling results.
But they're saying that in public, and therefore it must be true.
Well, they're on the record. So there you have it.
And again, that feeds back to McConnell's whole approach to this, which is to say it's inevitable when it may or may not be.
Okay, that we don't know, but yes, that's how you would manipulate the situation. Just call it that, and do things like file for cloture.
We have the votes, but you don't have the votes. Okay, then we're going to. I don't know. Flake is making us do this. Okay, so we're going to have an FBI investigation. Of course, we'll manipulate it so that it can't possibly fail. Okay, and then we had that. Okay, and now we have the votes, and we haven't heard from the senators who are still on the fence, but we have them. Yes, and the vote will be whenever we say it is. Okay.
Well, true.
And that's where we're at.
That they get to do. Well, okay. Yeah, that's, one of many moving parts still yet to be revealed. There's more to come. You have some more polls. Is that what you're saving for after the break?
Or actual districts, Senate and House. We'll do that after the break.
All right. Very good. We'll round that up in a couple of other stories. And then, after that, YOLO, nothing matters. You know how this goes. Okay.
Good for Democrats.
Yes, right. And, many others. Got lots of platitudes to share with you of my own after this. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin is still with us, and that matters, among many other things that does. We searched throughout the break for something that we could still LOL and YOLO, but say, all right, in the end, something matters. So I do have that available. If we decide to say something matters, we can go to that. You also had a number of other items. I promised before the break that I had a number of platitudes to share. That was a big lie. I'm a fraud, like Donald Trump. And I don't have them. I've been borrowing them from my father this whole time.
Well, the only polls that matter are the final polls.
Yes.
On election day.
Right. And sometimes they don't matter either. But okay.
So, most interesting set of polls, I think, came from the Los Angeles Times this morning. Republicans are at risk of a wipeout in California's 6 most hotly contested congressional races, a new poll shows. A result that could radically reshape the state's political map with major consequences nationally. So this piece is in the LA Times and by David Lauder, who's their covering polling guy. Mm-hmm. The poll conducted for the LA Times by UC Berkeley's Institute for Governmental Studies underscores how close many of the contests remain. Remember, what makes it a wave is when you win the close races. The Democratic tide threatens to swamp congressional districts in Southern California suburbs that Republicans have controlled for decades. That would significantly boost Democrat chances of gaining the additional 23 seats they need. But if the tide ebbs only slightly, the GOP could emerge with much of its control intact. In other words, these are close races.
Yeah, I did see somebody tweeting the other day that just a reminder that an entirely, a real, how will we say it, a possible expected outcome, even in a wave year, is Democrats picking up, 18 seats or so and losing by 2 points in 40 seats where it should never have been close at all. And it's close, but you didn't win. Yeah, and that's that.
Good. So let's go look at some of those specific polls just because they are so interesting. Let's see if we can track them down here.
All right.
Steve Kornacki listed them in a convenient way. California 10, the Democrat Harder 50, Denham Republican 45. In Devin Nunes district, he's doing okay, despite the story that his family farm really is located in Iowa next to Steve King.
Yes.
Did we cover that one?
I mentioned that was out there. Yeah, I didn't go extensively into it. Once you found out it's not in California and it's in Steve King's district in Iowa, and everybody who works on it is undocumented.
And they don't want to talk to you because they don't want ICE to come and close down the farm.
Right.
So Nunes is 53, Jantz 45. That's about the only one that's really solidly for the Republican. In California 25, Hill, the Democrat, is 50. Knight is 46. In California 39, Cisneros is 49 and Kim is 48. That's a Democrat over the Republican by a point. In California 45, Katie Porter is 52 and Mimi Walters is 45. Mimi Walters is an incumbent, I think, there.
Yeah.
California 48, Ruda is 48 and Rohrabacher is 48. So Dana Rohrabacher is tied. The congressman from Moscow.
Yeah.
But, for an incumbent to be tied isn't great, so we'll see what happens actually on Election Day.
Right.
And California 49, Levin, the Democrat, is 55, Harkey 41. So 49, California 49 seems pretty solidly in the Democratic side. And then another close one here, Duncan Hunter, the guy who's guilty or should be, he's indicted. He might turn out to be guilty of all sorts of fraudulent use of campaign funds and throwing his wife under the bus. Campa Nahar is 47, the Democrat, and Hunter's 49. So that's a pretty close one. So on the whole, those taken together are pretty good news for the Democrats in Southern California, which again is a Republican stronghold. In Virginia 10, new poll out, not only is Barbara Comstock trailing Wexner, the Democrat, by 7 points, but the Democrats have a plus 15 enthusiasm gap.
Enthusiasm.
We like that gap. Okay.
Remember, the whole GOP narrative here is enthusiasm for the GOP is way up based on the Kavanaugh fight. Well, you're not seeing it in Virginia 10, and that's the kind of swing district where it matters the most.
Yeah, that poll I don't trust because they called me.
They did?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I answered.
And did you, yeah? You answered the poll?
Yeah. I try not to do that.
Right.
If I don't have to. But this one, I decided, what the heck? Let's go on with it. Okay. So, yeah, it's totally skewed. That's crazy. Don't listen to that one.
Right. Then what else do we have? We have I think it was a Mason-Dixon poll in Florida, one of the few polls that still had Rick Scott ahead of Nelson, but not anymore. In their poll this morning, Nelson is 47 and Scott 46. So all of the polls are now showing Bill Nelson pulling slightly ahead of Rick Scott, or as Harry Enton likes to put it in this particular poll, this would be a statistically insignificant lead. It's just that all the polls lately have had Nelson in front, just like all the polls have Gillum in front.
That's an interesting point there. We understand how this happens, but it was just interesting that you bring that up as statistically insignificant lead. And I was just thinking about what you were saying about wave elections and close ones, and just thinking about how many people are in Congress because of something statistically insignificant.
Right.
We make a lot of decisions that way.
Well, that goes along with their electorally and legislatively insignificant careers.
That's true. All right.
Okay. So anyway, so you have those. Let's see, what else do we have in polling? Let's just scan down and see if there's any that I left out there. Those are the important ones, though. So, again, you have the narrative, as Nate Silver and Dave Wasserman were talking about how this has energized the GOP. And believe me, there's plenty of Republican pundits who would love to run with that narrative because it's a whole lot better than what they were looking at. But the data is not supporting it. And what's interesting is, okay, so what happens if, as expected, probably 70% chance, Kavanaugh goes ahead and he gets nominated?
Yeah.
Great. They celebrate. Is that going to bring them to the polls because they won?
They could be hung over from the celebration.
Right. The really interesting question is that'll bring Democrats out because they'll be really pissed.
Right.
Josh Krasauer thinks Democrats are already maxed out in terms of pissed offness. I don't think he has a clue.
I don't know that there's an upper limit.
I don't think there is an upper limit. I asked him, what's your measurement for maxed out?
I said so. That is
Margie O'Mara, the pollster,
yes,
agreed that was kind of a dumb thing to say, but we'll see about that. One of the more fascinating questions, though, is okay. So what happens if Kavanaugh loses?
Okay. Yes.
Does that energize the GOP as the pundits claim, or does it depress the GOP as the guy talking to courts that I told you claims? Now, Trump and McConnell are acting like they have to do this because if they don't do this, they're doomed. So I'm not looking at what they're saying. I'm watching what they're doing.
True.
And I think that if Kavanaugh does go down, it's like a triple win for Democrats. So they're doing their best to make sure that doesn't happen. And as we talked about, I don't remember whether it was Monday or Wednesday, the problem for Flake, for Collins, for Murkowski, not Manchin, but the problem for Flake, Murkowski, and Collins is that it's going to be presented and ought to be looked at fairly as if you don't vote for Kavanaugh, you are voting to end a GOP majority in Congress.
Okay.
Because our voters won't show up. So the pressure is on you. The burden is on you to support a GOP majority. And if you vote against Kavanaugh, regardless of the merits have nothing to do with it. Any sane person would have either dropped out or had his nomination pulled. But now we're talking about preserving a GOP majority because that's the way it worked out. So what are you going to do now? And that's the pressure on them, and that's why it's so hard to figure out what they're going to do.
That is interesting. What a dynamic, too, to be able to tell your to tell one set of not only inside your own people in your conference this, but also to drop it to the media that we're going ahead with this vote because it has to happen, because if it doesn't, the base is depressed, and then have a press conference the next day and say, if we don't do this and or Kavanaugh loses, our base is going to be so excited and energized. They'll come out and punish, Democrats for having defeated this good man. And it's odd that the same reporters can write both stories too. I don't know. They said it.
Yeah.
So I wrote it.
And again, the only reason they're writing those stories and trying to figure out which of the two narratives is correct is because it's still not a done deal. This is still not 100% that he passes.
That's true.
Which is odd when you step back and think about it, because they have enough Republican votes to do anything they want. And they have the gavel, as we saw during the hearings, and for setting up the FBI probe, whatever you want to call it. And that matters. And when you can make the rules, you can do anything you want. And they're still having trouble getting it done.
Yes.
Now, I don't take a moral victory from that. I really want to see this guy defeated. I think it's bad if he's on the court. But I'm just saying, he is so bad that even with all those advantages, they haven't been able to lock this down.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty awful. I can say that.
He is pretty awful, and they have not been able to lock it down. Otherwise, the vote would have been last week.
Yeah, there's no reason they couldn't have just gone forward if they had those votes. But, all right, so Flake decided to play at being up for grabs for a while, and who knows what happens in the end.
Right, but if they had the vote without Flake, then they could have said, I appreciate that. Why don't you go make a floor speech like Ben Sass, and we're voting tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. Could have been done.
And they
that
would
way.
have.
Yeah, I don't see why they would have waited. There's no need for
to.
keeping him happy. He's leaving.
So the bottom line is he's really that bad. And you know what? They really believe these things. They just want to push him through anyway.
Yeah, probably true. All right. Well, let's see. I know now Armando. I can have him wait, but he was wondering whether it would make sense to come on once the roundup was.
Oh, sure.
complete.
If he can come on, that'd be great. What do we have to do technically?
I don't know. I think I have
That
to
is to
press the
say, what do
buttons.
you have to do?
Yeah, right. I think I would have to. We give him 15 seconds through the delay in the stream to realize that we're talking about him.
And inviting
And then
him
I
to
would
call. And then,
I think I have to call him, as I recall. We had such
okay.
difficulty adding him to the call, but let me try it. I'll just I don't know. Maybe he'll be
call
ready.
him and see if he's available.
Yeah, sure. This is the way we should do most of our show. All right,
Yeah.
let's see.
Call some random dude and just see if they're available.
Yeah, just right. Whoever happens to be in my directory.
Oh, it's Armando. Who knew?
Yeah. Well, let's see. We'll see whether. I didn't alert him that I was going to call. We'll see how this goes. See if he rolls out of bed for this.
Right.
Okay. Hey, it worked. I think Armando.
Are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Hey, are you ready
Yay.
to come on the show? I think I recall we had such trouble adding you to the call when you called in, so I thought, all right, I'll give him a call, and that's when I
We'll
realized
just call you without telling
I
you.
have no producer, so I don't know.
Full disclosure, I asked to be on a call with the both of you. So.
Yes, that's true. I just didn't.
So
tell
what's
you
going
what was
on this
happening.
morning? What do you got to say?
Well, there's this whole thing going on, and it goes to this question of the polling result. But just to step back for a second, Brett Kavanaugh is unfit to be on the Supreme Court. I don't think any reasonable person doubts that. I say that literally. I don't think anybody on the right or left thinks this guy should be on the court. The right has decided they want him.
For other reasons. And we didn't
reasons.
throw this in, but we should. But now there's a growing list, whether it's the 1,000 lawyers or the American Bar Association or the National Council on Churches, ACLU. There's a bunch of institutional groups coming in and saying he's bad.
Right. And the thing that, and they want him, and I think they're probably going to get him. I've said this consistently. It may be 50-50, maybe 51-49, maybe 52-48. Who knows if Heitkamp is going to jump? Frankly.
Well, once they hit 50, you can't count on the Democrats to vote no.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever. They're going to do what they're going to do. I think Heitkamp would be stupid. I think Manchin would be stupid. I'd never heard of a voter deciding, okay, I was going to vote for the Republican, but because you voted for Kavanaugh, now I'm going to vote for you. It's not going to happen. And if Heitkamp is dead, she's dead. Look, we lost the Supreme Court in 2016. No one wanted to take it seriously. The Bernie people and everybody else, and Susan Sarandon and Nina Turner, and all the people who now lecture us about what we should be doing, they were wrong. The Supreme Court, as it's configured now, is lost. And one of the things I want to be clear about is, for us, as in terms of policy and decisions, Kavanaugh is no worse than Kittredge or Coney Barrett or whoever the next person would be. And there would be a next person. This is the reality. But there's a good principled reason to oppose Kavanaugh because he's unfit to be on the court.
Right, but it's not policy because they've got 92 other clones waiting in line.
The fact is that it was a bad choice. McConnell was right at the beginning. And I don't think that McConnell knew about this necessarily, just the whole White House stuff. But remember, before this came out, we had Kavanaugh lying under oath on millions of things. The guy is just a liar.
He's a partisan operative who was perfectly happy to use stolen emails, by the way. Is that any reflection of the 2016 campaign? Sure. So Trump obviously had no problem with him.
So the question of what Democrats should do what's right. And what's right is to oppose an unfit person to be on the court. The consequence of what happens when the Republicans jam him on the court is a different question. And there's two. To me, the one thing I've tried to tell people, my opinion, of course, is that when they do jam him on the court, it's going to be an electoral positive for Democrats in November. For two reasons. Number one, to the degree that there is increased enthusiasm from Republicans because, and I buy that, to be honest with you, because there's this big, high-profile, straightforward Republican not necessarily Trump issue that's getting huge attention in the media. It's not surprising that Republican interest in the election has gone up, right? I mean, it would be shocking if it didn't.
It was going to anyway. This just moved it up a week.
Right. So, okay, but let's say on Saturday they confirm him 51-49 or 50-50 and Pence comes in. Where does that enthusiasm go? I don't think it goes for another 4 weeks. I mean, Trump's voters don't have that long of attention span, I don't think. So it goes to Democratic voters who care about this. And if you look even at the NPR Marist poll, when you're talking about findings, and you might have mentioned it, I don't know. Jeff Guerin had a good tweet storm on that. Is who is most interested in the Kavanaugh matter? Who is going to be most vote determinative?
Voters are going to come out to support people who voted against him more than people who are going to come out and vote for people who supported him.
Well, if he gets in, and the vice versa, if we blocked him, the people would be less. I just think that's natural human reaction. Anger does fuel votes. It just does. I mean,
right.
I think
the one caveat here is that anger does make people go out and want to vote more than complacency or status quo pleasure. That's for sure. But in this particular case, the question is, does anger translate to anger at Republican Party for not owning the libs, and therefore do you not get the non-Republican Trump voters who showed up in 2016 but don't show up now? That's the danger for them.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also agree there's a positive effect for Democrats. The Marist poll showed Democrats leading by 31 points among white college-educated women.
Mm-hmm. Hillary
didn't win white college-educated votes by 63-32. She won them 54-41, something like that. So you're tripling the Democratic advantage among white college-educated women.
Which means, of course, the stuff that we talked about on Monday is going to turn out to be true. They're sacrificing the House, but they're trying to get a couple of red state Democrats in the Senate, like Heitkamp.
If Heitkamp is really down to
like Donnelly, like McCaskill.
Well, I don't know that they got McCaskill. There's no polling that indicates that McCaskill's been hurt by this at all. She announced no before anybody.
Right. Just because they want stuff doesn't mean they get them. But that's
Donnelly is ahead in the latest Fox poll and so he wasn't hurt either. It seems to be a North Dakota thing, which is bizarre. I don't know why North Dakota cares so much about the Supreme Court than other states, or I don't know North Dakota, so I have no idea. But if she's really down 10 points or 12 points, she never had a chance. It wasn't close.
Right.
If she lost 3 points
and she was always
Kavanaugh, she's still okay. She lost by 7.
Yeah, she was always one of the more vulnerable Democratic senators. And so this is just confirmation of the same thing. Even if it's a poll that's a little bit too skewed Republican, it's still probably true. She's still probably down by 6 or 7, and probably always was.
And if she was, then she was basically dead anyway.
So vote the way you want, right? So vote against.
Well, I don't know what she's going to do. It's interesting whether she would vote her conscience or not. I don't think there's a political upside to her voting for Kavanaugh, but politicians grasp at straws, so I would not be surprised.
Well, the one straw they all grasp on is I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do until it's clear that I'm not going to,
well, there's going to be a vote
myself out too far. I'm not putting my neck out on this. I'll wait.
I know you guys think not, or aren't sure. You think McConnell will pull back if he doesn't have the votes. I don't think so.
No, McConnell will not pull back.
I think they're voting
on
tomorrow.
The floor, even if they lose. He cannot pull back.
They're voting tomorrow, and the vote tomorrow is the final vote.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to vote cloture, you're voting yes.
Yeah, pulling it, this is not a normal situation. In a normal situation, if you don't have the votes, you pull it. But in this particular case, win or lose, it has to be on the floor. He's already committed. And the White House will not hear it any other way.
So that's going to happen. So then the fact that the FBI report is secret and it tells you that it was all a joke anyway. And for Flake to have played this game was actually, to me, kind of discrediting to whatever he was trying to do. I actually think Flake is a crazy conservative, but I think he's a decent person. Mm-hmm. But he's a politician. Mm-hmm. But he's kind of stupid too. I mean, there's that. The whole game playing he did here is to what effect? that FBI report, as it developed, is useless to everybody. We can't point to things in it. Well, we can point to things that didn't happen, and that's what we'll do. But no Republican is going to vote for this. Susan Collins can't say, oh, well, the FBI report. She can't say that. So she's where she was a week ago. Flake is where he was a week ago. Murkowski, I think, is a no, believe it or not. I think her noises seem more no-like to me.
Yeah, and she's got other reasons for voting no, including
I think the
Native Americans.
thing is probably,
right. Those are the people that elected her, and they don't want it, and her governor doesn't want it. She's got cover at home to vote no.
I think so, and she's already run independent anyway.
Yeah,
she's already been through that crucible. So
it's really Collins, and that's our problem. And as I was talking about
remember, if I can't,
this is going to be a vote to decide whether or not to keep the Republican majority, and she's going to have the pressure of the party on her back, and she is not a profile in courage.
Well, if I was a Republican, I'd actually want her to vote no. I'd want Kavanaugh voted down if I was just a cynical Republican. They're going to get another justice who's better than Kavanaugh.
I'd be talking to Flake about it, not Collins.
Now, the other thing about this is that there's the short term, but the longer term, and David knows I talk about this a lot, and it's a long shot. I'm not saying it's something that could even happen in 2 years, 3 years, or maybe even 5. This makeup of this court is a disaster for progressives and progressive policies and Democrats. This 5-4 court, if Kavanaugh's on it, or even not Kavanaugh, Kittredge or Coney Barrett, or pick your poison.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible. We're going to lose on every major issue at the court. And the only thing that will determine things is how much do you think the court would be restrained?
Right. How much pressure does it put on Roberts to be something? And
they struck down the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah,
they struck down the Voting Rights Act.
I know, and preserve the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I'm not saying that Roberts is a secret liberal. That's not what I'm saying.
I know you're not.
The center of the court winds up with him, and therefore it's center right, but how far right? And it's very different than the center of the court being Kavanaugh, in which case it's a complete disaster.
I tell you, we have to rethink the way we deal with the court politically. It's not it can't be a legitimate institution anymore. It has to be treated as the political football it is. Right. And it goes back to what I think we have to start drumming up, and it's going to take 3-5 years, maybe 10 years. We have to expand the number of justices on the court. We have to play constitutional hardball. Mitch McConnell showed you they have no restraints.
Yep.
Then we have no choice. We cannot unilaterally disarm.
So I'm going to get off and leave you with David, but my rant yesterday went along the lines of the difference between the two parties, and part of my ongoing unhappiness with political coverage is that Democrats tend to try to do the right thing and Republicans tend to do what works, and it's covered as, well, what works, and therefore it's got nothing to do with right or wrong. It's got nothing to do with policy. It worked. Maybe they cheated with the FBI, but clearly it was effective, and that's the way it should be scored. So it's a win.
Yes.
Right. I would leave you with one negative thought, Greg. You're never Trump or friends, but except maybe Nichols. I guess he stood up.
Nichols, Bill Kristol. There's a list.
Yeah, but 90% of them showed you what they are.
Yeah, more like 60-40. But the ones, you're right that they did show you who they are, and the ones that caved and went tribal, they're revealed. So we know who they are now.
All right. Have a good day, Dr. Dworkin. Don't kill anybody.
Hey.
I'll try especially hard today just to prove you wrong. Yeah? Take care.
Take care.
All right. Change your appointments, everybody. Today's a bonus day.
Of course, I'm joking. Greg is one of the finest doctors in Connecticut by repute. He's not my doctor, but you can look him up. He's a bigwig.
I'll withdraw that libel suit right now.
An effective last minute. All right. Thanks.
The last thing you say is what counts. Isn't that how the rules work?
That's right.
I'll have to. Armando's
like
a lawyer.
Trump.
I'm not. I don't play a lawyer on the internet. I just know these guys for a long time, and we really enjoy talking. Thanks for listening. This is Kagro in the Morning with, of course, David Waldman. It's his show, and Armando and I come on and give him a hard time. And you only got a few more minutes for the break, David, so you got to figure out what you want to talk about.
We should just take it now.
And
David,
for the rest of the afternoon.
I can soliloquy for 4 minutes while you find out the laugh out loud, nothing matters segments.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. All right.
Care,
sure. Very good.
Take
Okay.
care,
Thanks, Greg. Take care. See you next week. And we'll have some indication of what the hell's happening by that point. And
right. I had not seen any early leaking about what's in the FBI reports, David, but again, I don't think it matters.
Not very much, although my so far the leading indication of what's in there, there's even more games going on than the manipulation of the report. I think they successfully manipulated the report such that it has not only perhaps no damaging information, but that they do in fact consider it exculpatory. I mean, it's rigged to be exculpatory, but the unusual secrecy surrounding it, I thought at first was, well, that's not what you would do with a report that you think is exculpatory. And then I saw Senator Cornyn and a few others saying, oh, no, I believe that this should be released to the public. And I realized, oh, I see. The secrecy game was a setup. We would impose this enormous amount of secrecy on it, gin up outrage about A, the whole thing being rigged, and B, covering up all the information with secrecy, only to then have Republican senators redeem themselves and say, no, I'm for revealing the whole thing, but only because they know that there's nothing in it, or it actually just says, by gosh, he is exactly the choir boy that he said he was, and you forced my hand. I'll reveal it now. Here it is for you to review. You got me. I'm
that doesn't
nothing.
Work,
yeah, well, so what?
Well, we'll wait for the break, and I'll tell you why I think that doesn't work.
All right, fine. That's a possibility. Well, yeah, I'm just guessing. I think it's weird that they would.
It's an opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll spin it that way. I just don't think it'll work.
Okay. All right, we'll be right back then. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show on Netroots Radio. We are still with Armando, so we'll be discussing, all the crazy things happening this morning. So far, no indication. A quick check of Twitter tells me no leaks so far that I can tell of anything that's worth much. I've seen zero. Apparently, no reason to go ahead and do that. Although it is interesting that again all the secrecy that they built up around it, and then the insistence that somehow, I'm not even sure where this came from, that the idea of characterizing what was in the report is also out of bounds. And I don't really know how you enforce that one. I mean, people are going to be coming to the floor and saying, well, all sorts of things about the report, and they'll be characterizing it all the time. And saying, well, we read it, and I'm now convinced that X, Y, Z, and that'll tell you their view of the content of the report. And, of course, the White House immediately violated that and said, it is, it's exactly what we said was the case. There's no evidence whatsoever corroborating any of the stories in this report, which is an easy thing to do.
This is the same White
House
House that said that Trump didn't mock Professor Ford.
Right.
I mean,
and didn't mock anybody. Didn't mock the reporters. Didn't mock.
Yes. I mean, so that's almost useless.
Yes.
I don't know who would be helpful. Collins would say it, but who cares? This is now baked in. It's a question of whether they want to vote for it or not. But here's a point, and if you look, you'll see Greg Sargent just posted a piece, and this is based on his reporting of who was interviewed and who wasn't. And he just went through the list of all the people who weren't interviewed.
Yeah.
By the FBI.
There are a lot. And like we said, those stories will just instead start being told in the press or on the Ellen DeGeneres show or in the New Yorker over and over again. It won't make much difference.
I'll go one further for you. You know who will interview them and bring them in for public hearings if things go correctly in November? Gerald Nadler, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee.
Maybe.
We'll see you in January.
Yeah.
Now, Kavanaugh won't appear. He'll claim separation of powers and God knows what. But that doesn't matter.
No, I suppose you can just at least to develop the story. Although I guess there's also the possibility that Nadler's not like this, but there's always the possibility that we're handed the old "don't look backward" card and say, "Look, it is what it is. We'll deal with the court going forward." But
no, that's not the way. That's not what it is, and I assume Nadler will never go for that.
He's not that.
Anyway.
He never really was somebody who played that. But the House leadership is likely to want to play things that way. I don't think they'll be able to.
I would be shocked. And if that's how Pelosi plays it, she could just forget about being Speaker of the House. We would not stand for that.
Yeah, I'm not.
In January, if we
I don't have
the
anything
House,
that indicates
the Senate
that
Judiciary Committee will need to convene hearings on this. Period.
It'll be really interesting. I of course, I just like to know these things, and I think a lot of people probably would. There would certainly be some pushback from others, though, who say, I don't know what you're going to do with this information. Just like it has always been the case with impeachment-related issues. Well, we don't have the votes for that, and so let's not waste time.
This is oversight. We're oversighting the background
one big difference
process by the FBI.
I agree. One big difference, I guess, my own counter to that would be that was something that made a certain amount of sense when you had a newly elected Democratic president with a proposed agenda to pursue in Congress. That does not exist here. There isn't a president, there isn't a Democratic president with an agenda to pass here. All there is a Republican president with an agenda that's anathema to democratic values, supposedly. So it could come out very differently just because of that. And we hope so. I mean, I don't know. It'd be awfully difficult at this point for Pelosi, given the nature of the issue, plus the fact that there's no Democratic president asking to put these issues aside in favor of an agenda. And, of course, I mean, at this point, Nadler is sufficiently senior and has always been interested in pursuing those kinds of investigations. We'll see. But, ultimately, you'll find yourself back at that space. Suppose, and I guess there's even early pushback that could come from, I don't know which quarters, whether it's leadership or not, saying, well, suppose you uncover all this compelling evidence that in a normal world would and should and could lead to impeachment, but for the fact that you don't have enough votes in the Senate. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to put us in this position of saying, we've uncovered all this information and we're going to frustrate you all again by having it come to nothing? Are you sure you want to spend time on this?
Absolutely, I do, and I'll tell you why. It's my project, and maybe nobody will agree with it, but why I would want to do it is because I want to delegitimize the decisions of the Supreme Court of the United States.
Oh, well, okay.
I want to start a reform movement that redoes it and expands the justices in the court and undoes all the unspeakable destruction of legitimacy and norms of the court done by Mitch McConnell in the last 3 years. Well, actually, you could argue 10 years of Mitch McConnell delegitimizing the courts. It has to be redone. It's a crisis. I have no faith in the courts. Do you?
I won't. After this is done, certainly. I don't have very little now. I guess that's true.
So, I mean, I think that's the purpose of it, and that's a legitimate purpose. Suppose the purpose of the hearings was to consider reform of the Supreme Court.
Oh, yes, okay. That would be, yeah, why not?
Okay, because now I'm not talking about 67 votes. By the way, I'm not for 60 either. I'll nuke the legislative filibuster for this because it's a Supreme Court thing, and we've nuked filibuster for all Supreme Court related issues. Ergo, legislation about the courts is also nuked.
That would make for an interesting argument, and lay the blame on them for that one.
I did. And listen, when he nuked the filibuster for the Supreme Court, he means that anything related to the Supreme Court is now not something that's subject to filibuster. That's how I interpret the rule. That's the vote I want to have.
Okay.
And off we go.
Yes, that's not That's not it. That didn't happen that way, but it's not to say if you have 51 votes, now it is. There you go. Well, okay, that would make for an interesting cover for it, certainly, and that would probably work in the House or anywhere. That we're interested in reforming the court system. You don't even necessarily have to title your hearings reform of the Supreme Court. It's the American judicial system, the federal bench. Sure.
Yeah, when reviewing the qualifications and background of of justices nominated for the court, we're looking at that process because there's real issues there. We don't if the White House is directing it, are we really getting a true accounting?
Yeah,
we may need to create an independent body to give us the background, or rather have the FBI not answer to the White House on background checks. We're going to create legislation of what the FBI needs to do. How about that for a reason for hearings?
That's a perfectly good one, and you'd have every reason to do it. I mean, given what has happened now, what lesson might you think, if any, if the White House is capable of drawing any lessons from anything, or cares about lessons or history or what happened last week or anything, then someone somewhere, I'm sure, is keeping notes. Like, okay, let's say another court vacancy arises, or worse, let's say Donald Trump reads in the newspaper that Democrats are saying they want to expand the court, and he says, well, if I expand the court first, I don't know how you would get that through I don't know. Maybe you would get it through a Democratic Congress.
That would be a gift from heaven if they did that.
And he may say, and so I'm gonna expand it myself and pack it with my own nominees. But whatever, however a vacancy arises,
unless he packs it with more than 4 billion people, whatever half the number of people in the world are, I can always pack it with the other half.
That is true.
So that's silly. I mean, I hope he does.
So
I would
4.1 billion
to do it. That would be fantastic.
But regardless of whether they do it that way or not, some vacancy arises, or he's filling a vacancy in one of the circuit courts. I would imagine that at that point somebody would probably say, why are we hamstringing ourselves by nominating these stuffy lawyers who, have this stupid code of ethics? Let's put Alex Jones on the court. Let's put, whatever, whoever it is, right? And then just say, well, that's crazy. They'll never pass a background check. And you say, are you out of your mind? Of course they'll pass a background check. The whole concept of background checks has just been changed. We've just demonstrated that the White House can dictate to the investigative authorities what is and isn't in bounds for a background investigation, and just say, all you can do is ask me.
Do a background check on Donald Trump, but don't check any of his shady financial deals.
Yeah, right. I mean, just why not just do any of those things? And if you can dictate the terms of the background check, then the background check is removed as a concern, and you just say, you name the craziest guy or the highest bidder, whatever, to the court, anywhere they want to go. And look, there's going to be a thing called a background check, and it's going to say they're great. So what's the problem? Well, Democrats will go crazy. They'll oppose it. Yeah, so they will anyway.
Exactly. I think you're right.
So I don't know why they don't draw. I don't know how we let them get away with this one, except that there's no way to stop them. They just declare a thing to be an FBI investigation or a background report, and you're stuck with no information about the nominee.
You get to talk to one witness, and you get to ask him these 3 questions: what's his favorite color?
Right.
I mean, the whole idea that this is an FBI background investigation just went out the window. Mm-hmm. Okay, you wanted to supplement it. Well, I wanted to investigate credible allegations of sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
Okay, FBI, you go do that. You don't tell them, oh, by the way, but you can only ask these 4 witnesses. And you can't look into these other things, even though they might be relevant to that initial question.
Yeah. Well, once you dictate the terms, just say, we're looking into credible allegations of sexual misconduct. One condition, no questions about sexual misconduct or allegations regarding the above. Thank you.
I don't know if you followed the Urban Meyer story at Ohio State.
No.
They hired the former SEC chief, who's a investigator for hire, and basically every time she investigates, the person she investigates is exonerated.
That is
miraculous. And it's a joke. And of course, she did exonerate Urban Meyer because that's what she was paid to do. So in essence, this is what you've turned the FBI into.
Yeah.
You basically say, I want you to have an investigation where you exonerate my nominee. Okay, I'll do it. How do I do it? Well, let me tell you specifically, these are the three things you should do and nothing else. Who takes that seriously? That's why I was just saying before about Cornyn saying, oh, release it. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
The whole thing's a joke.
I guess. Well, and of course this doesn't hurt them in any way either with Donald Trump and the Russia investigation or any other aspect of the investigation. Once Mueller's report comes out, they can point to what happened this week and say, "Oh, you Democrats, you're so ready to believe this. Last week you thought the FBI was a joke. You thought investigations."
I didn't say
were
the FBI was a joke. I said the investigation was a joke because the White House dictated how it was going to go.
Well, we dictated this one too. We just wanted to give you a fighting chance.
That's the whole point. Mueller had to be an independent counsel to do this. A special counsel was named because there was a conflict of interest. There was a absolute conflict of interest in the White House dictating how the background investigation of Kavanaugh went. The fact is, there should have been a Mueller-like figure to decide how the background investigation should go. That's the whole point.
Yes.
Well, the Mueller thing is actually buttresses the point. You need a Mueller figure to say, okay, this is what we should investigate. Or you have nobody even involved. You say, investigate this, and don't talk to me anymore until you give me the report. I'm not going to be involved at all. That's what the White House should have done, not have Don McGahn. I mean, Jeff Flake says yesterday, well, I've been keeping in touch with Don McGahn about how the FBI investigation is going. Well, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't have been talking to Don McGahn at all. Don McGahn's not neutral.
And Don McGahn shouldn't know how the investigation's going either.
It is going until he gets the final report.
But he did, and he told you. That's weird.
It's unbelievable.
Well,
how could the
charade's
how
over.
Can you possibly say this? I mean, this is why I say Jeff Flake is dumb.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't think he's unethical, because if he was unethical, he wouldn't have said he was talking to Don McGahn.
That's true.
He's just stupid.
That may be. I don't know. He maybe that he has no idea what an independent investigation would entail, or maybe, look, my job is to get us out of this Thursday, meaning last Thursday, and say,
well, again, if Jeff Flake's going along with it, he should have just said, okay, I'm waiting for the investigation, shut up, then said, okay, I read the investigation, he's cleared, I'm voting yes.
Yeah. I don't know what he's doing.
But to tell me that he's actually was keeping tabs with Don McGahn, it's like, what?
that is a little dumb, isn't it?
It is.
Well, he won't be investigated, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's retiring. He's going to be a lobbyist, whatever. He's going to be whatever Jeff Flake's going to be.
Yes. I mean, well, congratulations to Jeff Flake.
Congratulations to you. You're getting a big pay raise.
Yeah. Let's see. Another angle on the Kavanaugh thing, I guess, slightly. I did see a tweet this morning from Politico writer Alana Shore saying that a privacy-focused nonprofit group, I guess by the name of EPIC, which I don't know offhand, but the Electronic Privacy Information Center, says today that the National Archives has confirmed what everybody knew to be the case. Hundreds of records concerning Kavanaugh's role in the controversial White House surveillance programs of the George W. Bush administration, including warrantless wiretapping and the Patriot Act. So that you're not going to get that either. And everyone has forgotten about that because sex, but this is still hanging out there. And he lied about that from the get-go. And that includes, I think, everybody from the George W. Bush administration at the time lying about what they were doing right then and there. And were anyone to reveal this information and attempt to, I don't know, either investigate or in some fashion undo the policies as illegitimate, Anything, of course, that then would rise to the level of being reviewed by the Supreme Court would come under Kavanaugh's purview, and he'll say, gosh, I think this is immune from probing at this point, and always ought to be forever and ever. Now, give me my lifetime paycheck. So that's good. We'll be, that's another of those chances we had to look back on things, but didn't, and don't worry, there'll be plenty of time for that, and then we'll accomplish our healthcare agenda, and then we can always turn our attention to this. And if nothing else, historians will document the atrocities, unless, of course, we put one or possibly more of these people on the Supreme Court and they declare history illegal. That's crazy, but they may just do it. So Friday, we'll find out whether that happens or not.
Yeah, I mean, Friday, again, I think, obviously I have no confidence in Susan Collins, but I am interested to see how she handles this. I mean, how does she justify a yes vote will be a pretty interesting
I guess if you can have
exercise.
If you can have the cops clear the hallway outside your office and the streets outside your home and offices in Maine, and just pretend there aren't any upset constituents, you can do that. You just say, I'm going on vacation from constituents for a couple of years. That's going to be my life.
Well, again, for better or worse, there's going to be $5 million sitting there for somebody to run against her.
Yes.
She'll obviously not get a Republican challenger. So, is that a toss-up race? Probably.
I guess so.
Probably a toss-up race in a presidential year with Trump on the ballot. Now she's got to endorse, unless Trump doesn't run, which I guess is possible. She's going to have to run a Senate reelection campaign with a lot of anger and a lot of money against her with Trump on the top of the ticket. I don't know. Is that going to work for her? Who knows?
Yeah, well.
Or she's going to retire and become a lobbyist.
Right.
Which
could
is
be
another possibility.
I guess so. Let's see. So speaking of this angle, though, that we were talking about, when you were saying, it reminded me when you said that there's $5 million waiting for a challenger to run against her.
Bribery.
Yeah.
Extortion.
Well, that's that's what they like to call it. But I remembered that I had seen something from Brandon Friedman tweeted last night. Just once again, just to bring you back around to how extremely dangerous this Kavanaugh situation and the politicization of the court has gotten. The way he put it, people don't realize, although you and I realize, how vulnerable we are to having an absolutely corrupt government. Trump, the Russians, or the Kochs, right?
Vulnerable, it's happened.
Simply pay Susan Collins $20 million to vote yes on Kavanaugh. And with a Republican-controlled Congress, Supreme Court, and White House, there'd be no one to enforce federal bribery laws about it. Not to mention the fact that, of course, the Supreme Court, apparently, even without Kavanaugh, only gets worse once you add Kavanaugh, perfectly happy to say, some of these things aren't really bribes anyway. Bob McConnell, you get to do, McDonald, you get to do what you want.
Even your old boss. I mean, we can say, hey,
right.
Well, there was no explicit quid pro quo.
Unless they find one because he's a Democrat and say, that seems arbitrary, but we're okay with it, 5-4.
Yes, indeed.
That's all it would take.
One time only, not for precedent.
Right, yeah. And Kavanaugh is into that. So that looms out there as a danger, of course. Other news about it, I mean, I don't know whether we're going to find anything out about this report or not, but among the many things, the many comments that came out in the news reports following up with the witnesses who were not followed up with by the FBI, one of the better illustrations of it, of just how ridiculous this whole situation is, I thought, Jesse Lee tweeting about a widely shared excerpt from the Meyer Farrow New Yorker piece yesterday, and there was an awful lot in there. But yes, they came back to the subject of Renata, the Renata Schroeder Dolphin, as she's now known, and that just strikes me as so remarkable. I mean, it's a sort of a personal note in this whole thing, and it will figure not at all into the voting on it, but just the first or the most widely shared tweet on it I saw from who is this person? Becca Laurie, who's I think just like you and me, a regular person just out there making these observations, and she really hit the nail on the head, just saying heartbreaking Renata details in the new piece here, and taking the excerpt basically of her once again retelling the story of discovering after she signed the letter of support saying that I know Brett Kavanaugh. I've known him for years, and he has always been respectful of women. He's always behaved honorably. I attest to this with my good name and signature. And then finding out afterwards that she didn't have a good name because Brett Kavanaugh spent his high school years, and I guess the ensuing 35 years, telling everyone from his high school that Renata was a big whore and everybody had sex with her. And she finds this out. Now, he's in trouble. He's accused of sexual improprieties as sexual assault. And he asks, I mean, I guess he doesn't do it directly. Somebody else does the whipping for this. But essentially, he's asking for I need your help, Renata. I need you to help get me on the Supreme Court. You know me. You know I'm honorable. She agrees, says yes, and only to find out, oh, I've been telling everyone you're a big whore for like a long time. Sorry about that. And I didn't even say sorry about it. I didn't mention it. What he did do, though, when that came up in the hearings that Jesse Lee, I thought, really hit it on the head in observing, he says, again, think about the indignation that Kavanaugh mustered here during his pre-written testimony. He just read it off the papers. It was one of his most emotional moments, denouncing everybody in the world for the slander. But as it turns out, he's completely full of crap. He was the one who slandered her. And he sat there in front of the committee on television on 3-4 networks and choking back tears and how dare you. And I just admired this woman so much. And the reality was that this was all his fault. And he had been doing her wrong for the past 35 plus years, fooling her into believing he was an honorable guy and squeezing an endorsement letter out of her mere seconds before the story breaks that he's been slandering her for decades. And now she's got to live with that. And we all have to live with this guy. He would sit there at the moment of truth and say, you are all against me. This is a huge conspiracy. For 35 years, you've been telling everybody you had sex regularly and with, no strings attached, and you passed her around the football team. She just found this out. And you sat there and say, I accuse you. And I also want to be on the Supreme Court. I find that, it's heartbreaking, but irrelevant to what's going to happen between now and the weekend. The Republicans are going to say that behavior right there belongs in the Supreme Court. Why? Because, I don't know, because he's going to immunize me and my friends from crime. Okay. Sounds like a good deal. That's pretty astonishing, and it'll change nothing. But I don't know. I found.
Oh, it was the most heinous and despicable moment that he pretended outraged that people were dragging her name through the mud. You dragged her name through the mud. You and your drunken buddies. Look, the guy was 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 when all these things were going on.
Yeah.
They were terrible things. They're really not excusable. But at the very least, say, it was terrible what I did. I just was trying to fit in. We were wrong. It was terrible. I feel terrible about it. I apologize profusely. But that's not who I am now. And that's not who I've been for 30 years. Something like that. But he decided to lie.
Yeah.
In the most despicable fashion. The guy is a piece of crap as a person.
Yeah. I mean,
And I
there's no
can
way around
say
it.
that because I've seen how he's behaved now. It's not that he was crap 35 years ago. He was.
Yes,
but he's
clearly.
crap now.
Yeah, he could have apologized. He could have done anything, but instead it was everyone else's fault but his, and that's because, it's really honestly, he doesn't have a judicial temperament because he's not a judge. He's a backstabber, a rat effer, and a killer. That's why they have him. And so they're going to put some robes on him and say he's super fair, too. All right, we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. We are back here again on the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Armando still with me. I'm flabbergasted. I've blown my reintroduction from the break. Just thinking about this stuff. I mean, I know this wasn't meant to be this depressing, but it is pretty sad. It's the most revealing episode, I think, in all of his testimony. You said as much as well during the break, and it will count for nothing. It will change nothing. It tells you all you need to know about the guy, but it tells you all you need to know about Republicans, that they are okay with it, and that they have a rotating list of reasons why it's okay. Either he was 17,
you remember the episode where
a long time ago.
Grassley referred people to the FBI for, I don't know, sending in false information to the Judiciary Committee?
Oh, yeah, I remember him threatening that. I don't know, did he do
I think
something?
he sent a letter that's like, I don't know, some kooks said things that, who knows. I think it was the one about the rape on a boat off Rhode Island. I have no information about that. I never paid attention to it.
But he wanted to turn in people for providing what he thought was
and
false information.
But Kavanaugh's obvious lies are not referred, of course.
No, I guess not.
And they weren't just lies, David. They were manifestly obvious lies. You gave one example. I'll give you another. Mm-hmm. He said that he didn't hear about Deborah Ramirez's allegation about at Yale until he read about it in the New Yorker article. And now we know from texts that have been produced that that's a lie. That, in fact, months before, he was lobbying people to say it didn't happen.
Was he specifically speaking about the Ramirez allegation?
Yes.
I was questioned about this.
He was questioned directly. Direct question said, just to be clear, I think it was Hatch who asked him.
Yeah.
The first time you heard about the Deborah Ramirez allegation was when you read it in the New Yorker article. Answer, yes.
Yeah, I guess the questioning was...
That's a provable lie, and it's a material lie. It was lying before Congress. It was perjury. That's not going to be referred to the FBI now, is it?
Well, no. Not likely the case. The question that I think I was being asked, I think Gideon had pointed out, and it's a good one. It's a narrow point, and it requires going back and taking a look at the email discussion. The question was whether or not the coordinated discussion in email specifically named Ramirez and her complaint, and I need you to say this about Ramirez and her complaint, or whether it could have been viewed as, well, I know that there are things in my background, and this is bad enough, that could come out. I need everybody on my team.
Specifically about Ramirez because he talked about the wedding they both attended.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And they had shared the photos of the two of them together. All right, so
it's dead to rights perjury.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
You know how these things go. If you lie to Congress it's I did see a couple of people online trying to round up support for the idea of contacting U.S. attorneys and pointing this out and saying, this is a violation of federal law. We need to see an investigation and a prosecution here. But there's some question in my mind about whether or not you could or would be able to open an investigation with regard to lying to Congress or perjury before Congress without a referral from Congress. If Congress isn't going to file a complaint, can a U.S. attorney say, look, on the basis of public information, I'm going to file this? I'm not that any U.S. attorney under the Trump administration would, but I don't even know if they can. I'm not certain that this isn't the sort of thing that you need to have a complainant and they have to officially refer it to. I know that's what we do with contempt of Congress, but I don't know about how you would initiate an investigation.
No, it's an
like
18.
this.
It's a violation of 1001. It's covered under the statute. Actually, people
it's a
talk
violation,
about the
is
FBI
true,
being the serious thing, and it is because the FBI actually can take it up upon itself. Congress has to actually refer lying to Congress to the FBI for investigation. That's the difference. So it's actually a violation of the law. It's not a contempt of Congress. It's a violation of the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may be a contempt of Congress too, but it's a violation of the law. This just in, by the way.
Yeah.
Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley. I've now received a committee staff briefing on the FBI supplement to Judge Kavanaugh's background investigation file.
Oh.
There's nothing in it that we didn't already know. It's time to vote.
I see.
Yeah, but what's not in it is the issue. My God.
Well, I did see somebody posit that the reason for the secrecy was that the report was blank. It's a stack of empty pages, just like Trump's press conferences. Or, for that matter...
That does sum up what Chuck Grassley actually knows.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That could be. Or, for that matter, why not just reprint the transcripts of the hearings they've already had and say, well, this is what we learned. Well, and nothing we didn't. That's true. Look at that. It even has some information that's damaging to him, so we were honest. So I'm not certain how they resolve this, but it's I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's a terrible situation, and some people are really getting screwed here. I guess my mind is still on poor Renata here. I guess that's another thing I'm questioning is how many people are still on that letter. I know that she withdrew her name. I guess my question is how many of the other supposedly 64 women that knew him in high school are willing to say, well, I signed it with the understanding that I had the right impression of him. However, I have learned this about what he did to Renata, but I haven't learned that he did it to me, so I'm still in. Those are the people vouching for you now. Wow. Think about that. 60-something
I still
plus.
marvel at the 65 women he supposedly knew in high school.
Yeah, well, it was a phone tree they used, and they called one another, and call your friends. Everybody call two friends, and we'll sign it on. And I don't know whether they knew him or not, but I mean, I get how many of the 64 other women, and again, I'm still not 100%. I never counted the number. I just saw that being reported, and I don't know, everything's a lie. So, and I also noticed that I started reading down the list, and like I had the third person on the list is man. So I don't know what to tell you, but okay, there could be 65 women. So let's say there's 64. I think 2 people I know of said no, and I think there was at one point an effort to contact them all and say, do you still stand by it? And they were only able to get in touch with and get an answer from something like 2 women saying I'm still in on it. But now I have further questions, and I would like them to finish that survey. And if so, I want the names of the women who said, it's all right with me that he trashes everybody else who I signed on to this letter with, just so long as you have no evidence of him ever saying I was a big whore, then that's fine. Because I wasn't, And I'd like to know the names, though, of people who behave that way and throw the other women under the bus. but I have a feeling I know which ones they are, and it's probably Brit Hume's daughter.
Exactly.
That's
Who's
it.
apparently crazier than he is.
Yeah, well, it's hard to do, but, he's
I
trained her
was a
for
little shocked.
all her life.
I looked at her Twitter timeline one point, and it's like, wow, she's nuts.
Well,
I mean, nuttier. It's funny. You wonder how did Brit Hume, who was a conservative, but he was actually a respectable reporter at ABC 30 years ago or 25 years ago.
I guess so.
How did he become who he is now? And then I looked at his daughter and said, it must be his daughter who just ate him up.
Guess so. I have this observation from one of our listeners, Jack Ox, who tweets that she saw a tweet from Pelosi that Dems will not go after Kavanaugh if we win the House. So I'm asking, we should follow up on that and see if that's actually something we can find. And do we agree with the interpretation of it, or is it unambiguous? And it says a tweet from Pelosi. So I'm asking if we can find this thing, because that wouldn't be helpful right now. Although, again, I understand the impulse only because I understand what she does. I know who she is and how she handles stuff like that, and it's the most disappointing thing about her, bar none. But,
yeah, I know, but she can't escape it now.
Yeah, and sometimes she can have her hand forced, and sometimes she wants to have her hand forced, I suppose, and will say, no, I'm not going to unleash this terribly disruptive force. Oh, my entire caucus says yes. Well, look, I don't think it's a good idea, but we're going to do it.
It's not going to be her call. She's to be honest with you,
one way or another.
What'll be interesting is these white guy challengers to her, like Tim Ryan and people like that. Are they going to be against it?
That's true.
And think they'll win the caucus? I mean, the way you might beat her is her being against it and saying, no, we have to do this. It's really important to the country.
Yeah, although typically her challengers are not more reliable on questions like that than she is.
No, they're terrible. I mean, Tim Ryan, I don't trust them as far as I can throw him.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one new thing from Grassley. In his letter, he says, quote, there's no hint of misconduct in confidential report of Kavanaugh's sexual misconduct claims.
I know, that wasn't allowed.
Well, wait a second.
Oh.
Christine Blasey Ford testified that he tried to rape her. That's a hint of something. Deborah Ramirez said he put his penis in her face. That's a hint. Maybe she's lying.
That is
Maybe it's not true, but there's got to be a hint. Otherwise, you didn't even look at those? What did you look at?
Nothing. But
nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you write that? I mean, that's just plain stupid.
Yeah, well, that's boilerplate stuff for him, Not a hint, not even the slightest hint.
It's bad boilerplate. That's what I'm saying. In some respects,
true. He's terrible.
You and I have been talking about, are they going to release this? Well, I don't think so.
You don't?
I don't think so. Now, of course, they did not interview Christine Ford, Professor Ford, and they didn't. I believe they did interview Professor Ramirez. I don't know if I just made her professor. I don't know if she is one. Deborah Ramirez.
That's true.
So at the very least, her allegations, and she said there's 20 people that could corroborate it, and of course the FBI didn't interview any of the 20 people she said could corroborate it.
No. So
that's a hint of something. It's not only just a hint; it's a hint of where you should look. And no, you can't look there. This whitewash has failed. In my respect, look, everybody's going to do what they're going to do. I'm not saying it's going to impact how the vote goes. But as a whitewash, this was a bad one.
Yeah, they didn't really need it to be a good one.
And and the only reason they even did this, of course, was Flake said, "I'm not voting for it," and then, well, that put pressure on Collins because she didn't say it till he said it. Let's be clear.
Okay, yes.
She never talks until she has to.
Right.
So and Murkowski, I don't know what. Then she jumped on, and then Manchin and all the rest of them wanted it, and they were hoping something would break and get them off the hook for a week, probably, and it didn't. And now tomorrow they got to vote.
Well, yes. So we'll see how they deal with that. I mean, I think we've probably exhausted every day. I think we've exhausted the topic.
Wow.
But it just gets worse and worse.
This is actually fascinating.
What is
Absolutely unrelated.
Okay.
And it's Nothing Matters material.
this? Oh, all right.
It said, investor in Trump's flagship New York City hotel considered removing his name. One investor who backed Trump, to keep the name on it, was later nominated to a presidential commission.
What's the? Send me this.
It's David Fahrenholtz. It's his latest tweet 11 minutes ago. He wrote a story. I could try to get it to you, but it would be easier. I think you're better off just looking up Fahrenholtz.
Okay. Well, let's see. So he tweeted about it recently. We'll take
11 minutes ago.
It is related to nothing in particular, but it's amazing how little time we've had to even give to this. Although, what's the point of the story about Trump being a huge fraud? We're not looking into that one either.
Yeah, I know. It just struck me that, okay, well, I guess now we can just bribe people with presidential perks.
Yes. So
for private gain.
Why not? Investors in Trump's flagship.
What do we have these emoluments clauses for again? I mean, what's the point of all that? I have no idea. By the way, those are the slowest moving cases in the history of cases. You're 2 years in, and not the first bit of discovery has been done in any of these emoluments cases.
Yes, we're
by the way,
jumping through standing hoops.
Thing, and then I'll be quiet for a while.
Okay.
Nadler has to, or somebody has to investigate the GSA sign-off on the Trump lease in Washington, D.C., because that's a scandal.
Yeah, well,
I have not forgotten about that.
Okay, nor should you. That's particularly dumb. You're not allowed to have an ownership stake in this if you're a government employee. Well, he's not, so there you go. But he is. Well, not in my view.
Yeah, he's not getting the money. So it doesn't have anything to do with what he. First of all, he is getting the money. He just doesn't collect it till he's out of office. Mm-hmm. He's still getting the money. Number one. Number two, it didn't require that he get money.
Yes. Oh, and I guess the latest reporting on his father's tax fraud and in his participation in that tax fraud, there's probably no ground less stable to stand on than a claim that Donald Trump isn't getting the money because the law stands in the way or his agreement stands in the way. There's the whole, 4,000 something word article.
14,000.
14,000. That's not long enough. 14,000 word article is all about how for 70 plus years, the Trump family has been constructing clever and often illegal
criminal
ways around.
It was a criminal
prohibitions
enterprise.
Of getting money. Yeah, I mean,
it was a racketeering business.
That is true.
That's what it was. It's as simple as that. It was a crime family.
Yeah. Although some of the inventions, I keep saying they're very intriguing, is what I guess I should say.
They are, but I want to make this point again because the mafia engages in legitimate businesses.
They are intriguing too.
The carding business is a real business.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually is a business.
Yeah.
People go pick up the trash, and the construction business is a real business.
Yes.
They just do it in a criminal way.
Yeah.
That's what the RICO Act was all about. It was about getting at the criminal, ill-begotten gains of criminals that have been laundered into legitimate businesses.
Yes. And
this was a RICO enterprise. Fred Trump was a criminal mastermind.
Yes.
He was the head of a criminal gang.
Yeah. And, I mean, I guess if you haven't
Donald Trump
read
is
the
nothing
piece.
but John Gotti Jr. Without the violence.
Maybe. Yes. We think. There's no evidence of our FBI investigation shows no evidence of violence. We'll say that. But yeah, I mean, the most remarkable thing, the example I liked the most, that is because I thought it was, I keep going to the word ingenious, but it's not ingenious. And he didn't invent it. It had been done before. It was already illegal by the time he did it, which means the IRS already knew that people engaged in this behavior, and they've declared it illegal. But the all-county building supply one,
Yes.
I love it. If only because it's like, wow, what would you do this for? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, I get it. And remember that the whole motivation here is for Fred Trump to wind down his cash position. And
no, but he was laundering. He was
pass it out to his
Obviously,
kids.
3-year-old Donald Trump wasn't playing with the money. I mean, it went into a bank account that Fred obviously controlled.
Yes,
and it also worked it for another reason. They
Uh-huh.
would inflate their invoices to their apartment buildings so they could charge higher and rent control apartments.
Yeah, and they didn't even really have to do that. I wonder if they could have done it entirely legally just by saying, well, we're creating a middleman, and normally if you were interested chiefly in keeping costs down and passing on the savings to the consumer, like all American businesses do, then you would say, let's not create a middleman. But you could have done it where Fred Trump would, be buying in bulk they use the example of boilers for his apartment buildings. And if you own 100 apartment buildings, then you can work a great deal probably on buying boilers in bulk and put one in each of the buildings. And he made a lot of money doing things that way for several decades. And then he realized he was sitting on a mountain of cash. They keep describing it as a mountain of cash. And if he wanted to give it to his kids, it was subject to a 55% gift tax. And he said, forget that. We're not going to do that. Instead, what I'll do here is we'll create a middleman that does the buying for our apartments, but only after I've done the buying for the Trump organization. And then if you didn't read this part of the article, you need to go back and look at it. He would go and negotiate with whoever, the manufacturer or the wholesaler or the retailer even of the boilers, and negotiate a fantastic bulk price on it. And then he would have All County Building Supply, which he founded and owned and shared the ownership with his kids. All County would buy those boilers from him at an inflated price. What you could have done is just marked it up 20% or whatever it is. It's a normal profit taking. And All County pays you what you paid plus 20%. And you just pocket 20% and go away. And honestly, even if they catch you, they say, that's pretty shady. They could have you on self-dealing if there's not enough outside representation on the board of All County or something like that. But for 20%, they'd let it go. And then you have All County sell those boilers again to the individual apartment buildings, and then they of course say, well, we've had a tremendous increase in costs here at our apartments. We've had to buy an expensive boiler system, and rent is going up on all of you as a result. But that was not enough for them. They started marking things up 100, 200%, and then paying themselves management fees for negotiating the deals between Fred and All County, and then All County and the buildings that Fred owned, and he would take a cut at each stage, the idea of which was to wind down this cash position and transfer it to the owners of All County, who were his kids, and call it business income instead of a gift. And that's all it was. And that was just one of hundreds of things that they did. I wondered how many people really grasped, what was going on here, and that it's this close to being, if not legal, ignorable by the IRS. Because
what's great about this particular story, though, and why these investigations with the New York authorities, at least, IRS isn't going to do anything because
not now.
Is Alan Weisselberg is still alive. And he was the guy behind all these things. Now, he's going to have to make a deal, but he already made a deal. So, in theory, he's already has to cooperate. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, he made a deal with the SDNY and with the New York authorities. So he has to tell us, well, what were you doing? You were the guy, weren't you? Yes. Because he was with Fred from the 60s on. Yeah. And then he became Donald's fixer with taxes. He knows all of these things. He did all of these things. There is a witness. You know, the corroboration thing. He's going to testify. Alan Weisselberg is going to testify.
All right. He's kept his name out of the papers for the most part up until...
And the politics of the New York AG and the New York Tax Division is pretty clear. They're going to want to get into this. There's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
$200 million in taxes, I think, to
yes, but
New York State.
I did see one estimate say that, they would owe $200 million or so, and
I don't know if that counts penalties and interest. Maybe it does. I don't know. I didn't see the calculation, but it's $200 million.
Yeah,
that's not nothing.
I guess.
In fact,
not.
that would probably bankrupt Donald Trump.
Well, yes, he doesn't really have that kind of cash.
He does not have that kind of cash.
Follow up on the Pelosi thing. Matthew Rigdon, I guess, has been looking around and says he searched the Pelosi timeline, couldn't find a tweet about anything regarding impeachment of Kavanaugh, but did find some spoken remarks reported at the Huffington Post very recently. So this published on the 2nd, so just 2 days ago. Amanda Turkle's piece. Nancy Pelosi not on board with impeaching Brett Kavanaugh. Simply putting it this way, that would not be my plan, which indicates to me like, okay, well, it's not your plan. All right, so we don't blame you. It's somebody else's plan.
Yeah, at this point, I don't care.
I'm not certain what
says. Yeah. I actually think this has its own inexorable momentum, and it's just not going to be stoppable by anybody.
It could be the case.
And Jerry Nadler's not going to be interested in stopping it, and he's going to be the Judiciary Committee chairman if we win in November. Which I like to finish with this: you should be angry about what's happening, but the only way you can do something about it is to vote. Simple as that. There's no other option. If we don't win this election, forget it. It's over. We should all pack our bags and move to Europe or Canada or Mexico or wherever you want to go, because this country will become a criminal enterprise with no rule of law. It will be a banana republic. I honestly believe
not
that. I really
far
do.
off from getting there. Yeah. So, I guess I would just I'll quickly interpret what I'm reading here as one of those, well, hey, I am not going to demand impeachment. It's not my plan. We all want to come together, but what happens happens. And
whatever. I get.
And we also don't have the votes.
Maybe she thinks that's smart politics now. I have no idea, but it doesn't matter what she says. It doesn't matter.
All right.
In my opinion,
well, that's one way
I
of
could be completely wrong, and maybe she'll have an iron fist and have the clout to squash any investigation. I do not think she will.
Okay.
Maybe people will agree to not call it an impeachment investigation and call it some other type of investigation.
That is possible. And I liked your entree into
there will
it
be
way.
An investigation if we win.
All right. Well, we'll take your word for it, not Nancy Pelosi's.
There will be.
You probably should. I don't see why not. Okay. Well, all right. All right. Let's wind things up. And, almost time, in fact, to hand things over to Justice here. But thank you for joining us and helping carry us through.
For letting me go on and on.
These difficult days. Thanks, Armando.
We'll
talk to you again, I'm sure, next week. You do the same. Take a good weekend break. And, almost time for us to turn the mics over. Let's see. There's so many things that we didn't get to, all of which are extremely important. And I said that at the outset that I didn't know whether I was going to be able to pre-record a piece here, but I feel compelled to give it a shot. And maybe at the cost of my own health. I'm supposed to get on the treadmill real soon and take some time on there, but I could spend it on a few other things. If not, we'll be back on Monday. Although Monday is, what are we going to call Monday these days? It's no longer politically correct, and I do believe in that. I don't mean to use it as a dismissive term, to call it Columbus Day, and I've just grown up calling it that. And that's what it says on my calendar. And you know how important calendars are these days. My God, if it says it on the calendar, then it has to be so. Brett Kavanaugh has at least driven that point home for us. So many things to get to and so little time. Although, by the time I get around to them, the game will have changed. And, of course, tomorrow we'll find out at some point when the cloture vote is said to be scheduled for taking place. I don't think that it would happen during the live portion during a live broadcast tomorrow, even if we were on the air. 11 o'clock is a bit early for these guys. But at any rate, keep an eye open on that. I don't know what to tell you. YOLO, nothing matters. We'll just watch it all not matter. Best I can recommend for you now, though, if you're still hungry for more, is hang on, as Justice Putnam brings us the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We can get to the topics he's got lined up for today. Let's see, Republican senators speak on the Supreme Court nominations then and now, and I imagine that will provide some interesting contrast over the years. And then, Trump's pick to run the Social Security Administration. This is great. Impersonated a police officer in 2012 to avoid a trespassing charge. That seems like a youthful mistake. Georgia is sued for purging minority voters ahead of the midterm elections. Gee whiz. And 21 House Republicans on the Ways and Means Committee voted just last month to keep Trump's sketchy tax practices
on networksradio.com
hidden from the public. Will that stand in light of the new news?
To the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
There's still more. After his break, they'll be moving on to the Devin Nunes story, slammed for backing Trump on his anti-immigrant rampage while his family uses undocumented immigrant labor. And lies don't get more brazen than the one Dana Rohrabacher is telling his constituents about health care. You want to bet? Let's find out next with Justice.